students, welcome to Tarun IS. Today we will be discussing editorials of 11th of October 2022. So let's start with first editorial of the day. Today we are going to discuss regulation of online gaming industry. You can relate this topic with your Gender Studies paper 2, government policies and interventions for the development in various sectors and issues arising out of their design and implementation. You can also relate this topic with your General Studies paper 4, that is ethical issues arising due to online gaming. I have taken this article from Indian Express News. This is not an editorial. This was a report that was actually published in Indian Express regarding the regulation of the online gaming industry by the Indian government and the task force, the recommendation of the task force that was constituted by the Ministry of Electronics and Information and Technology in May 2022. So according to the task force, the online gaming industry, it does require a central regulatory body. So we will be discussing what the role of this central regulatory body will be. Its role will be multifaceted, and let's see the composition of the task force. That it consisted of the CEO of Niti Aayog, the secretaries of ministries from Information and Technologies, Home, Finance, Information and Broadcasting, and Consumer Affairs. So what basically this online gaming is? You know, the online gaming, for example, we have things like cricket, we have got this PUBG. So there had been many instances where this online gaming is causing lot of societal issues. In the past few years, there was one incident where a child had actually killed his mother because she did not allow him to play this online game. And so game of chance and game of skills, they are particularly popular among the youth. And because India is a youth country, so this online gaming has a very vast impact on the psychology and the behavior of the youth. So therefore it is of utmost importance that online gaming is to be regulated. However, the question arises, why do we need a central law when it comes to regulation of online gaming? The first point is that online gaming currently is under the purview of state. Betting, gambling, etc. They are all under the purview of the state. For example, if you look at the states of Sikkim and if you look at the states of Goa, then these two states, they do allow casinos, gambling, etc. because states do have the right of this trade and commerce that takes place within their territory. Another question of need for the central law is the difficulty in enforcing the law. There is no uniformity amongst the various states when it comes to regulating the gambling and regulating the betting, etc., and also the online gaming recently with the progress in the digitalization. So therefore there is a need that a central uniform law is to be legislated so as to have a uniformity when it comes to regulating a particular industry. The third point is that rule which is passed in one state is not applicable or is not enforceable in the another state. This is not app here, this is state, right? The fourth point is that the state government, they do not have enough power, blocking powers, for example, geo-blocking, etc. So therefore, there was a need for the central law to regulate the online gaming industry. Now let's see, before we see the concerns regarding the online gaming industry, let's see the current status of online gaming industry. The revenue generated by the mobile gaming, it was $1.5 billion in the year 2022 and is expected to rise to $5 billion by 2025. That means this is a fast growing industry. So any industry which grows at such a pace, which has involved the huge, the large number of youth of the country, requires due regulation. And the second point is the CAGR. CAGR, which was observed between the year 2017 to 2020, is approximately 38%, as opposed to 8% in China and 10% in USA. So you can see the clear difference between the growth rate of the online gaming industry in India as compared to China and USA. China has in fact banned many of the online games. Therefore, the growth is not seen as tremendously as it is seen in India. The new paying users has been the fastest growth. Now, what is this new paying users? Many of the online games require money to play, right? So new paying users are also increasing. So the growth for 2 consecutive years, it was at 49%. There is no need for you to remember all these figures, but just remember this figure, that this will be enough for you to explain to the examiner or to the interviewer that the rate at which the online gaming industry is growing, and therefore there is a need for the regulation and the central law. This is a report by Ernst & Young and Fickey that talked about the transaction-based games revenue. Sometimes what happens, when you play a game, you pay to play the game, and the game in return give you some cash incentives or etc. So according to this report, it talks about the transaction-based games revenue. It grew by 26% in India. Paying gamers increasing by 17% from 80 million in 2020 to 95 million in 2021. So it talks about the depth So it talks about the depth and also the pace at which the online gaming industry is growing. So now let's see the concerns which has arisen because of this online gaming industry. The first concern is the proliferation, the rate at which it is growing. The second concern is the loss of money and bankruptcy. Because if you look at the game of chance, there are game of chance and there is a game of skill. Now let me give you example of game of chance. For example, there is Ludo. Now it is a probability, it is a game which is based on probability. You throw a dice and some number comes up. It depends upon the chance at which that number will come, and then the game will be, it will progress. So the game of chance and the game of skills, they need to be distinguished, and the task force and the central law body which is to be established for online gaming industry also have distinguishing between these two games as one of its mandate. So, and game of skills, for example, chess is a game of skill. For example, horse race betting. Horse race betting. Now this horse race betting is equal, a game of chance and as well as a game of skills. Why? It depends upon the one who is betting on the horse. After examining the horse, after seeing the record of the horse and his jockey. So you see, these type of games are included in the game of chance, and this type of game is including this type of game is included in game of chance, and this type of game is included in the game of skill. All right. So in the game of chance, there is a loss of money, bankruptcy, and which also leads to other social issues. Something which is similar to the social issues that arises after alcoholism. So this is a sort of addiction also. It leads to addiction. Once you start playing and you win one game, now what happens in casinos sometimes, I do not have a personal experience, but this is something which usually happens. You go to a casino and you win the first game. After that, you will be addicted to win more money, but your chances of winning in the consecutive games will reduce. So this is what happens, and it leads to bankruptcy and loss of money. There is suicidal cases also. For example, there were some online games like Blue Whale Challenge, etc., etc., which led to many of the youngsters commit suicide, and so rate of suicides are also increasing, and this addiction causes alienation among youth, etc. There is surrogate advertisements. Now what happens, recently also the government of India had published the guidelines regarding the advertisement industry, and this was one of the guidelines, but it did not specifically mention the online gaming, etc. So what happened in the surrogate advertisements, that when you are playing a game, there are a lot of online advertisements that pops up on the window, and these are the surrogate advertisement. That means it is meant for some other purpose, or it is meant to popularize some other product, but it is visualized in a different way. For example, there was a few years back, there was one advertisement regarding this music CDs, etc., music CDs and all. However, these advertisements were surrogate advertisements because they were meant for selling the alcoholic beverages, but because the alcohols cannot be directly advertised due to the guidelines from the government of India, so they were actually popularized via these music CDs advertisements, etc. So I forgot the name of I think Imperial Blue or something was was the name, or I'm not sure about it, but this was the phenomena, right? So there is no regulation mechanism when it comes to grievance redressal, the protection of the players, the data protection, intellectual property rights, prohibiting the misleading advertisement, inconsistencies, etc. There are other issues and concerns that arises because of this gaming industry, and one is that the vulgarity and the nudity, and what type of online game is that. So therefore there is a need for the regulation of this industry. So we already saw the current status of the and future perspective of the online gaming. Now let's talk about the recommendations which are given by the task force. The first recommendation is that there should be a central law. There should be a central law that actually that will be dealing with the real money, which will be given as an incentive when you play the game, the free games of skills, the esports, online fantasy sports content, the card games, etc. The casual games with no real money element in form of stakes may be kept outside the scope of such regulation. If there is no real money involved in the online game, it can be kept out of the regulation of the central law. However, if they involve inappropriate content, violence, nudity, addictive content, or misleading content, then they will fall under the purview of this central law. The task force also recommended for a regulatory body for online gaming, for to certify the online game, for to seek compliance, enforcement of the law, and the regulatory body will also be mandated to distinguish. It will also be mandated to distinguish between the game of skill and the game of chance. Game of skill and game of chance. All right. There will be a 3-tier dispute resolution mechanism as it was proposed under the IT regulation rules of 2021. Any online gaming platform which offers real money will be considered as a legal entity in India under Indian law. There will be reporting entities under PMLA, that is Money Laundering Act of 2022, and they will also be required to report any suspicious transaction. For example, these online gaming transactions can also be utilized for rerouting the illegal money as a legal money in the country. So therefore, any suspicious transaction has to be reported to Financial Intelligence Unit of India. The regulating of the offshore betting and gambling websites. Now these under Indian law are not legal, and I mean they are banned in India. However, still there have been many instances where these offshore betting and gambling websites are still visible. I mean, on Indian internet and websites. Now let's talk about who will be in charge of what type of regulation. There will be no one ministry that will be responsible for regulating the online gaming. The MeitY will, in principle, it is going to be the ministry which will regulate the online gaming. However, the esports will be outside of its purview, which will be under the Department of the Sports. All the online gaming, which excluding betting and gambling, will be out of the purview of MeitY. Esport will be taken care of by the Department of Sports. The Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, it will overlook at the online advertisements and the ethicality of the advertisements, code of ethics, and the Ministry of Consumer Affairs will regulate the sector for the unfair trade practices. So there will be no one ministry that is going to overlook the online gaming industry, because it has it has got many facets and it has got many dimensions. So there are more ministries. So every ministry and department will be responsible for some part of regulation of the online gaming industry. Now let's move on to the second news of the day. I have taken this article from The Hindu. From The Hindu. This was in text and context. Alright. Talks about the action plan for Delhi's air pollution. You know that Delhi's air pollution is progressively worsening in the past few days. And the first stage of the revised GRAP, which is Graded Response Action Plan, has been enforced in Delhi NCR. It has been enforced in Delhi NCR. You can relate this topic with General Studies Paper 3, that is Conservation, Environment, Pollution and Degradation. So let's move on and see what this GRAP is. It was implemented since the year 2016. Now what happened to see the Delhi's worsening air pollution and to alleviate its adverse effect, GRAP was basically a set of measures that were advocated or that were given by the Central Pollution Control Board to the Supreme Court, and in 2016 the Supreme Court approved these measures and they were notified by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change on 12th of January 2022. So basically GRAP, the Graded Response Action Plan, they were a set of measures which were given by Central Pollution Control Board to Supreme Court of India, and which it approved, and they were later on notified by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change on 12th of January 2022. Now let's look at the stages in which the GRAP is implemented. It consists of the 4 stages. The first, depending upon the air quality index. Now recently the Government of India has notified that the Graded Response Action Plan will be on air quality of India and not just on the PM 2.5 or PM 10 level. Alright, so the first stage is implemented when the air quality index is between 201 to 300, and the second stage of very poor will be implemented when the air quality index it reaches to between 301 to 400, and the third stage will be implemented when the air quality index reaches between 401 to 450, and the severe plus in case of the severe plus air pollution more than 450 of air quality index, the fourth stage will be implemented. Now we will discuss in brief that what are the measures which are undertaken by the government of Delhi NCR to enforce GRAP into different stages. Now if we look at stage 1, there will be ban on demolition, construction activities on the specific sites, not on all sites, but on specific sites. There will be no solid waste dumping on open land. There will be ban on firecrackers because Diwali is near and people tend to burst a lot of crackers. Heavy fines on openly burning of municipal solid waste. There will be mechanical cleaning of roads. The second stage would involve intensified mechanical sweeping of roads, sprinkling of water on alternative days, and uninterrupted power supply in order to reduce the usage of generator. in order to reduce the usage of generator. In the third stage, there will be intensified road cleaning, daily sprinkling of water so as to settle down the particulate metals. There will be strict ban on construction except for the construction which is being undertaken for hospitals, for other important commercial, for other important purpose like railway, metro, airport projects, etc. And there will be imposed restrictions on BS4 petrol and BS4 diesel. Now here you have to understand that India has already phased out this BS3, BS4, and we have directly shifted to BS6 norms. So therefore no need for this. Still there are some of the vehicles, till the complete implementation of BS6 norms will take time. And fourth stage is there will be ban on entry of all vehicles except for those vehicles which are carrying the essential commodities. There will be ban on this is by mistake. There will be ban on four-wheelers, light motor vehicles running on diesel. There will be ban on all construction and demolition activities, and the respective governments can undertake call on allowing public, private and municipal offices to work on 50% of their strength so as to reduce the commutation by the public and the public gatherings which will happen during the COVID-19. There will be additional emergency, and if the air quality index it reaches to the severe stage, then the additional emergency measures will be taken, such as closing of schools, odd even scheme, and closing of non-commercial activities. All right. So these were the four stages of JRAP which are undertaken to avoid the government take action on ad hoc basis. Now before this JRAP plan, the government of Delhi NCR and the adjacent states, they were taking measures on ad hoc basis. There was no complete standard operating procedure, and there were no such stages before the JRAP so as to reduce the Delhi's air pollution and its consequences. So that's it for today. Thank you.